let's go to Liberty and talk about the team that was the runaway favorites in CUSA last year. I think they were minus odds to win the league as late as August. Jamie Chadwell was, on top of the world after taking his team to the Fiesta Bowl a couple years ago, but everything went off the rails so quickly. They lost their first four against FBS opponents. They did win three straight, but then they lost their last four to go 4-8, like you mentioned, and just whiplash inducing for those fans in Lynchburg. What was that like as an outsider in Conference USA to have a team like that, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like they're maybe far and away the most well-funded and, biggest quote unquote brand in the conference, to have them go from being a presumptive runaway favorite to falling that far so quickly. What was that like?
It was really a shock. And I think we knew that maybe they weren't going to be as good as the couple of years before with Chadwell, especially the Fiesta Bowl team. But I mean, every game they lost, it was almost shocking. And, that they would fall behind in games and you're like, oh, well, they'll come back, but they don't come back. And the quarterback situation is all over the place. And things just did not go well. And it just was shocking, honestly. No one really had a 4-8 season for them at the beginning of the year. So for me, it was truly shocking to see where it went, and some of the offseason changes that they've made are very interesting. I think mainly, Jamie Chadwell's taking over the play calling duties after Coach Korn left. And I think that's always an interesting thing when an assistant leaves and the head coach takes over play calling duties. Sometimes it ends up well, sometimes it does not. And Coach Chadwell was dealing with a health scare and missed some time this spring. So, a lot of uncertainties around that program after it feeling super secure for the first year or two of the new Conference USA.
Yeah, I think if there was the safest bet you probably could have made in all of college football last offseason was Liberty at least, pushing for a bowl game. But that fall off was so quick. You mentioned the health scare. We're obviously praying and hoping. It seems like that's all worked out. So we're praying and hoping that that's good to go for Coach Chadwell, that he's made a full and lasting recovery. But they had to make some big moves because I think Chadwell has found himself in a pretty warm seat situation where he might not be able to survive another season like he had in 2025. And his biggest decision is going to be what he does at quarterback, right? Ethan Vasco is back, but the results on the field were not pretty for him last year. He has Deshaun Purdy coming in from Wake Forest and Jalen Henderson from West Virginia to try to win that job from him. But to me, it seems like you got to go with one of the two transfers if you want to have a chance at not repeating what happened last year.
Right. And I was listening to some of the stuff their beat guys were putting out a couple of weeks ago. It's definitely a true battle, but they think it is likely going to be Purdy at the end of the day. And he flashed some at Wake Forest last year. I think Vasco, he had a chance to prove it last year. It did not go well. I think he could be a quality backup, but I don't know if he has the upside to be able to get this team to where they want to go. So I agree with you. It's probably going to be one of the two transfers that's coming in, either Purdy or Henderson. And it sounds like it's probably going to be Purdy, but we'll have to see how that plays out. Obviously, there's still a lot of time left to go. But I agree. It's probably going to be one of the two new guys.
I think you're right. Purdy probably has the highest ceiling of them all. I think if they need a steady hand, Jalen Henderson, watching him his brief time at Texas A&M, he had a lot of nice tools. And I think it's always funny to think back of him as the guy that started the game that Texas A&M won going away, but Jimbo Fisher was fired the next day and they trotted the check out at halftime. But I'll always
Yeah.
love Jalen Henderson for that and root for him because of that. But
Yes. Yeah, and they brought in, and Quentin Cooley was a big part of what they did on offense the last 2 years at the running back spot. They bring in, I believe it's Cam Davis from Florida State, highly touted guy from there. So we'll see if he can pick up where Cooley left off, and because the running game is a big part of what they do offensively. And Caden Salter, a couple of years ago, the true dual threat guy that he was, unlocked a lot within that offense. And so if Davis can be a guy like they think he can be, I think the offense could start humming again for them, and they might be able to start winning some games. But a lot of questions, and a lot of questions, especially on the offensive side of the ball with Chadwell calling plays. It's that spread option. They'll stay with it, but does it look any different? Are the results going to be different than last year? So we'll see.
Yeah, it's a loaded back room that they've loaded up on transfers. Peyton Jones from Duke as well, Kanye Udo from Arizona State. So big names, especially Udo a couple of years ago at Army was all the hotness in the portal before he went out to Arizona State. But they've got to find a way to reestablish that run. When I was digging for this episode in 2023, they averaged 293 yards per game on the ground. Last year it went down to 250, but that's still obviously nothing to sneeze at. Last year it was 194. So they've dropped 100 yards per game in 2 years. That's got to be something that they figure out how to get back on track. They're going to travel to James Madison for the Battle of the Blue Ridge in the season opener. They're going to go back to Chadwell's old stomping grounds as well, Coastal Carolina, for one of the tougher non-conference slates that they've had in quite a while. But it's going to be an uphill battle. They have to go to Kennesaw, they get Western Kentucky and at home, I should say. But they're going to be a talented team, maybe one of the most talented in the league, but it's going to be an uphill battle to get all the way back to the top.
Yeah, and an interesting thing with Liberty, their scheduling the last few years has taken a lot of heat because it has been extremely weak. But you mentioned the Coastal Carolina. We'll see what they are under Coach Beard after he comes over from Missouri State, but they'll probably still be pretty good. James Madison, we know that they are always going to be towards the top of the Sun Belt, a good team. So Liberty's typically a team coming into conference play where you can rely on them being 3-1 or 4-0. I don't know if that's the case this year. And if they come in 2-2, 1-3, hypothetically, I mean, what is the vibe around that team coming into Conference USA play? So I think that's another, out of conference scheduling thing to watch. Probably the toughest out of conference schedule that they've had in a long time.